All right, folks, it's time for World Politics here on Pod TV. And we've got all kinds of interesting things to talk about on the political landscape. And I was actually mentioning a couple of things with two of my West Coast friends, and we'll see who else comes on the show as well. But I know I've got Rick Rosner, who just came back from a trip overseas. So he might have some things to say about how the world was treating him over there in Europe and all along those lines. And I was actually just talking about Jim Eade on yesterday because I ran into or I was talking on the phone to a young lady who is talking with some folks in Raleigh, North Carolina, that is teaching chess to young folks. So definitely doing a lot of that work that I know Jim Eade does as well. So I was saying that Shanice Green, who does a show here on the network called Dream Stocks, needs to get in touch with Jim Eade because he is the man that wrote Freedom, but also wrote the book Chess for Dummies. So I was figuring that he's got some experience working with folks there in the inner city and can probably give some advice to those folks that are doing similar work there in the whole notion of the East Coast and the state capital, to be exact. So I was actually talking about you, Jim, on yesterday. So I was
My
actually
ears
saying
were
that you need to
burning.
get in touch with folks and see what's happening in that regard. So I was dropping that note of encouragement about what you do and all along those lines. So definitely
Thanks,
had that in
Mark.
my mind, and I definitely want to find out, as I was doing before the show, how the world was treating Rick as he was coming back from London and all along those lines and everything. So that'll be really exciting to hear what he's got to say about his trip and everything. But I saw a very interesting article recently that was going on that folks will be interested in sharing and knowing about. And all along those lines, and we've got Tasha Starr here to join us as well, coming from Canada, and we'll see if other folks join as well. But we've got this governor here, or a potential governor. He's a lieutenant governor here in North Carolina, Mark Robinson. And he's written a book, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, Jim Eade. But he has written a book in his memoir that was released last year where he was saying that he was going to be taking science and history out of the school curriculum. So he was thinking that kids didn't need to know science and history, and he may be our governor here in this particular state. So North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson is dropping more hints about a potential run, and now it's not a potential run. He's definitely running for governor, but he has said that he would eliminate the State Board of Education's end abortion and work to prevent transgender people from serving in the military. But in his memoir, he explains how he drew his views from a wide range of life experiences, beginning with his troubled upbringing and a violent father and everything. But I did read where he is saying that, we don't need science, we don't need math. You can, I think he said, start getting those courses in the fifth grade. And I'm going like, no, it's okay to learn science even before the fifth grade and all along those lines, and definitely learn history before those times. But Jim, you're in the education space, so what is your thoughts? Because when I read that, I was like, I got to bring this up because this man has said that we don't need to have history and all of this in his memoirs. He was like, stick to the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic, and we can get to science and history later on in life if you are a student. And I know you are an educator, among other things. So, Jim, so what's your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's a party of book banning and education denial. I think that the K through 12 system needs to be upgraded thoroughly, but I wouldn't go to adopt that kind of measure. The education system needs to increase the creativity of children and the ability to learn. It's not enough to teach them to read and write. It's important to teach them to express themselves and to be able to problem solve. And these are the types of things that are the challenges that they're going to face. And it's never too early. I mean, we can teach chess to 5-year-olds. It's amazing what they can absorb and learn. And so to undersell them like that and to think that they can't learn these things, I think is just incredibly ignorant.
My wife and I watched some British quiz shows over there, and holy crap, do Brits know a lot more stuff than we do. And if we keep shortchanging education, the rest of the world, our advantage in the world has been our education and pulling the best and the brightest from. We're only 4% of the world's population, but we've been able to attract the best of the other 96%. And if we go anti-education, anti-science, if we make foreign people think that this might be a scary place to come for an education, the rest of the world will pass us by.
In both lanes.
Yeah, they'll just keep passing us by, and I heard that India might be the third economy now, behind two other ones, and I've got to figure out what those other two are. But that was something we were talking about on World Edition earlier, and all along those lines. But speaking of politics, and it is the World Politics Show, and I'm going to get to a couple of world issues, but there is this whole notion of impeachments going on, and I was wondering y'all's thoughts about this, because apparently Mayor Akas has lashed out at what he is saying are baseless GOP allegations ahead of a key impeachment vote, and I think they had already impeached one or two people out of Congress and all along those lines. But definitely we're seeing this move and all in this space. So I was wondering y'all's take on this, because apparently they are wanting to impeach him over the border policies. And I heard, and I don't know what y'all think about this, but I heard that our favorite person, Marjorie Taylor Greene, was having this notion that the red states should divide themselves from the blue states. She had said that last year, and apparently she's back at it again, saying that they need to divide themselves. So I guess she's trying to call for a civil war, and all along those lines. We haven't had one of those since the 1800s, but I was wondering y'all's take as to whether this will go, because I want to say that out of the 25, and there's like 25, I believe, Republican governors or something like that, the majority of them have said that they would back Texas in their border conflict with what's going on with the federal government. But I was just wondering, are we going to have a civil war and it be based on immigration and the border policy? So if anybody's got any,
we are going to have a civil war, but it's a movie that's coming out in April that shows America having a new civil war. So we'll have a movie civil war. I don't think we'll have a real one. But this is the Russian fire hose model of propaganda, that if you bombard people with bullshit every waking hour, a certain percentage of them will be persuaded. And this is the least effective Congress in history, except at bullshitting. They've done almost no legislating, but they just make a lot of noise. And a quarter of the U.S. population buys what they're saying.
What's your thoughts about that, Jim? And then I was going to get to something that is going on in the Middle East and everything, but what's your thoughts about this notion of a civil war?
Well, I hope it doesn't come to that, of course. But Mitch McConnell in the Senate seems to have made a border agreement, a bipartisan agreement about the border, how to handle it, because it is a mess right now. There's no legal way to get into the United States through the border system. It's broken. So my emphasis would be on repairing it. Put enough judges, put enough lawyers, put enough, be able to civilly and humanely house them while they're being processed. All of that kind of stuff. But in any case, the Senate and the president have pretty much agreed on a step that they can take to mitigate the problems, which are significant. But it's dead on arrival in the House. So again, we have some MAGA extremists holding progress hostage. They prefer chaos to problem solving, and it's a shame.
Yep. Sasha,
we said it a bunch, but the last time we had immigration reform pass, the government was under Reagan nearly 40 years ago.
Well, that's some time ago and everything. What's your take on this, Sasha? Because I know some people have been talking about the border, definitely from the South, but then I had talked to some people offline and everything, and they were talking about how some of the fentanyl is actually coming from the Canadian border, and they were wondering whether we're going to have walls or borders on both sides and all along those lines. But I just wondered your take on the border crisis, and is there a northern border crisis, or is it just strictly a southern border crisis and all along those lines? Because I heard some people talking about that there is a number of the fentanyl and other drugs that are coming from our northern side where you live at along Canada. But I just wanted your take on this border crisis before I get to Israel and some of the other parts of the world.
I think we have a case where well-meaning people relying on an old constitution of the United States, it's obviously imperfect document because it proclaims certain things, like, for example, peaceful transition of power. What that means? It means that both parties agree and do exactly that. If one party disagrees and is not peacefully transitions power, then somebody has to enforce it. If a border issue is the issue of federal government and a state government refuse to follow that up, it doesn't matter it's one state or 25 states or 57 states, it doesn't matter. The federal government must, there is no second word, I'm not mincing the words, they must arrest these people who resist, starting from the governor and go all the way down, throw them in jail, get them lawyers for next 5-6 years to show that they are innocent, that they didn't mean uprising and all this stuff. Let them do that. Get them busy for next 5-6 years. But you have to do your job. Nobody will be able to enforce the Constitution if nobody wants to use the power, authority. And if the present federal government, with Biden on the very top, refuse to do that, then Constitution is not worth a piece of paper on which it's written. It's enforceable. It's a bamboozle. It's nothing. You just might throw it away and say it's a jungle. It's everybody against everybody, and that's whoever is the strongest will win. If you want to go there, okay, you're already half the way there.
And speaking of that and everything, and I just see your hand, Rick, and everything, but along those same lines, and I'm going to the foreign stuff as well. And I know that Rick just came back from having a trip and all along, and hopefully he can share some of what he observed while he was visiting parts of the world that are not here in the United States or in the Canadian area or even in North America and all in that space. But Biden looks like he's going to try to play maybe his John Wayne role, because he is saying that he has decided how he will respond to the attack in Jordan. So he has said this after the deadly drone attack. So he says that the U.S. will be attacking an Iranian capital asset, and that will send a clear message. And that is something that he's been backed by General Philip Breedlove. So Biden is saying, I hold them responsible, and said he's made a decision on his response to the attack in Jordan. So are we going to have a more forceful president this time around that is going to actually handle things with an iron fist, as some people like our politicians to do? So I just wondering y'all's take on this, because these are some of the stronger words that I've heard from President Biden in some time. So is he or just all this political posturing that goes on as we head into the election season?
When we were attacked under Reagan, when we were attacked under George W. Bush, the nation came together to support them and their efforts. But now we're too polarized, so it's a lose-lose. Whatever Biden decides to do, a significant chunk of the population will find fault with it. But if anybody is qualified to try to figure out what to do, it's Biden, with 47 years experience holding national level political office. He has visited Israel 11 times, more than anybody else who's ever been president. So, he'll have to do something, and, pay out of it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting how that all plays out and everything. I was also seeing that the French, and definitely I was wondering your thoughts around this, Rick, and everything, have been having some rows with the farmers. And I know that you visited some parts of Europe. I'm not sure all of which you went to, but did you see any of the consequences of the French farmers blocking the roads around Paris? And maybe there was even some of those protests that were spilling out into other parts.
Not really, but my kid, lives in Britain. And there are a few days, maybe more than a few days every year, when the trains are shut down or something else is shut down because of mass public action, strikes. And Europe is set up to where the people, for one thing, the U.S. has 5.5 times the population of any single European country. So it's harder to get mass action going here, but mass action happens a lot in Europe. and it gets people better job conditions. The doctors went on strike in Britain a couple months ago, and strikes work when enough people go out on strike. And we're so used to the American brand of capitalism here that we think that, oh, that's creeping socialism. It's not. It's people getting things that we should maybe think about getting. The French and the Brits get like 4, 5, 6 weeks of paid vacation a year. What's the matter with that? Productivity has gone up tenfold since World War II. And why can't workers get some of the benefits of that in the U.S. the same way they get them over there?
Yeah, that'd be interesting how that would play out. Sometimes when we talk about things that are going on in some of these divided countries, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's in Eastern Europe, or whether it's in a number of other places, there is a country, and I know I've even talked about it, that is used as an example because they've been fighting forever as well. But it looks like there may actually be some peace coming into this area. And I can't remember if Jim has some of this as part of his heritage or not, but if he does, he can tell us and all along those lines. But a lot of times people will look at Ireland as one of those countries that's been in war forever. And Sean Fain says that a united Ireland is within touching distance as a Stormont deal has been agreed to. So the DUP deal with the UK to restore power sharing in Northern Ireland. So it does look like the Northern Ireland political party has agreed to end a 2-year boycott and restore the mothballed government. So could we be finally having a government of unity there in Ireland and everything? Because a lot of times people will look at that whole Ireland UK conflict as being one of those conflicts that seems to be perpetual. But it does seem like there may be some hope, and maybe there's going to be some efforts that this might put some peace in that area that has been at each other's throats for decades, if not centuries, and all along those lines. So, Jim, like I said, I can't remember all of your heritage, but I was just wondering your thoughts about that, because it does look like this could be an area of the world that could be finally having the concept of peace. Now, whether it actually happens or not, that's going to be another story, but it does look like they are at least talking in the right directions.
Well, yeah, I'm 96% Irish, 4% Inuit. So I think my ancestors took the long route around to get to Ireland. But the idea of peace in Ireland, it was horrific. When we talk about the troubles, you have to say which troubles, because they've been ongoing, and depending on what time frame you're looking at, there's been a lot of horror. Going back into Cromwell's time, they put in such restrictive laws, like you had to own land to be able to have rights, and Irish Catholics couldn't own land. So there was a brutal period where they were facing starvation and all sorts of troubles all throughout the division between North and South. When you meet them, you can't tell the difference, but the political differences go back generations, and so there's a hatred there that makes no sense when you look at it objectively, but is passionately felt there. And I would love to see it, but I still am very pessimistic about it happening. Hats off to the people trying to make it happen, though.
Yeah,
the Brits used to have dominion over maybe a quarter, a third of the world's people, with dozens and dozens of colonies. They said that the sun never set on the British Empire, which meant that they had so much land around the world that the sun was always shining on some British place or another. And for centuries, they were ruthless in suppressing efforts to avoid British rule. But since World War II, their empire has collapsed, and now they're just a country of 60 million people in a world of 8 billion people, and they're a lot less aggressive in protecting their interests. So it becomes, as Jim and I and said, we're all of us here, except for Jacoby, are old enough to remember, all the terrorism back and the government suppression in the 70s in Ireland and Northern Ireland. It was bad, and it was bloodthirsty, and it led to brutal attacks in London. But I don't think anybody's pushing for that kind of of violence anymore in that particular political realm. So,
Yeah, because I'm not even sure if the IRA is even as active as they used to be.
People. So these people in Northern Ireland, were they terrorists or freedom fighters?
regardless of what you call them, they're old men now, and they're
And to your point, Sasha, that is an interesting thing. And I don't know if Joey's got some thoughts, but that is one of those interesting conversations of semantics. So there are many people that would have called Nelson Mandela and even some of the other leaders of ANC freedom fighters, and there are others that would have called them terrorists. So definitely, it's probably who's writing the narrative and who is in control of the narrative when all is said and done. Because one's man terrorist is another man's freedom
Well, the
fighter.
question was actually
For
asked
years.
backwards. The question was asked backwards in the sense that Ireland was fighting for its independence of England. And so Northern Ireland was allied with England. And so the bombings and stuff were often caused by Sinn Féin, who were, from the mainland Ireland. And so they were perpetrated in the streets of Belfast, for example, in Northern Ireland many times. But the suppression of the past was usually enforced by the English, not so much. So I think when we talk about the terrorism of the past, that seems to have, if not gone away, certainly calmed down. We don't have anything like what we had in the 70s, for example, and we haven't had for some time. And it does seem like there are negotiations. People are sitting down and talking, which is almost always the real answer. But they had given up hopes, and they thought that the only thing that they get attention was through terrorist type of activities. And so Northern Ireland right now, as part of the United Kingdom, basically wants to stay there. And the other part, the mainland Ireland, wants a united Ireland, the entire island to be Ireland. And so that's the basis of a discussion is like, can they coexist peacefully? The answer is probably yes. I think they could. Could they be united? Yes, of course, they possibly could. So
along the same lines, would there ever be, and I'm going to switch it to another part of the world, can there ever be, because one is more capitalist oriented, and I'm actually going to mention three parts of the area that I'm talking about, but can there ever be a united China and everything? Because some people would say that definitely Taiwan is more capitalist oriented, and definitely Hong Kong, which is another part to some degree of mainland China, or it has been in the past. So will we ever see a part where China is ever one China under and kind of takes back over either Hong Kong and or Taiwan? Because I do know that that's
Hong Kong's been assimilated.
Yeah, but China took over Hong Kong and said, "Hey, Hong Kong, it's cool. You can keep being the way you were, just being Hong Kong." That's turned out to not be the case.
Right.
China's come in and kind of squashed down any kind of dissent. And just so everybody knows, Taiwan makes the world's chips. The best, most intricate computer chips in the world are made in Taiwan. That's why China wants Taiwan, besides the political reasons for unification.
Yeah.
But I disagree that China absorbed Hong Kong fully. The life in Hong Kong is very different from mainland China. Regardless, they can believe that they control it, they absorbed it, or whatever they want to say. It's not true. The life is in Hong Kong completely different. There is still more or less market system. You can say that communists control this market society, but it's not really true. They have a lovely stock market. They have a lot of valuable companies in Hong Kong. So I wouldn't go as far as to say that mainland China controls it. And even
if I'm wrong, just the loudest voices of the most radical voices in Hong Kong.
Dissent is entirely suppressed. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but
yes,
if you want to
living in
do
Hong Kong is
business,
different than living in mainland
you're
China.
still cool.
His life is completely different there. But this is a good lesson for Taiwan, because Taiwan understand that even if they would become a part of China, and there will be for some time independent perhaps, or deemed to be independent, China slowly but surely, they will definitely try to control Taiwan. And Taiwan doesn't want any of this. So they will resist, and they will definitely fight for their independence. And seems today that they have
Their
means.
recent election said very clearly that they want their independence.
Yeah.
So I brought this up with my wife's fiance, who knows a lot of stuff about, like how China's this juggernaut. And he's like, no, you should look at China, because China's as messed up as, it's not, it doesn't have this very effective entrepreneurial focus as much as it used to. It's kind of reverting back to its old ways under what's the Winnie the Pooh looking dictator's name? Anyway, he's not great for he's suppressing a lot of stuff and screwing up China and making it less of an undeniable, an unstoppable force than it maybe looked like.
The response to COVID was very poor, and people have been, there's a lot going on that's very bad in China. There's no two ways to look at it.
Jim,
however, it's still the second greatest economy in the world.
Jim, agree that America has to thank General, what's his name, Generalissimus or Emperor Qi, for he is still there, and because he's trying to control Chinese economy. That's why United States is number one and there for quite a long time.
I see what you're saying.
China could be number one already.
So the thing unifying all the things happening in the world is that we're gradually, Terminator style, moving into a war against the machines. That it's not going to be, the Northern Ireland versus the rest of Ireland, and it's going to be like, how do we shift to deal with the insane disruption created by technology? How are we going to adjust the economy? Like when, there are a ton of towns in Italy and England that are depopulated because they're based on old economic models of farming, and the young people just get the hell out, and you can buy like a fixer house or a villa in Italy for like €1 because there's nobody left in the town. And it's all
all the textile factories and plants in New England shut down, and it was basically the same thing. You go to these towns, and there's at least 60% of the people who are over 60. The young people have to get jobs, and they move away to get them.
Rick, you're worrying about men fighting the machines. Right now, the real threat is from human beings, not the machines. Why would you worry about fighting machines when there are enough human beings?
I was kind of being facetious.
Listen, you're looking into future, not even so distant future, but maybe half distant or maybe very distant future. Look at today. There is a formidable foe of U.S. government. It's a state governors. You have to send the armies, fight them, immediately jail them all for 5-6 years at least, and take responsibilities. That's how you have to defend the country.
Well, the big thing going on in the world is autocrats, people that want to be despots, people that want to be dictators, such as Putin in Russia, so that what they say goes. And unfortunately, in the United States, we've seen this a rise in nationalism in Italy, a rise in nationalism in France. So far, there would, not devastating effects. We see that in the United States as well. And these 25 states that Marjorie Taylor Greene, and by the way, she didn't get taught history in the 5th grade. She didn't get taught history at all if she wants another civil war. But the idea here is that, Donald Trump wants to be a dictator. And there are people that are supporting him. And that's the way this is what the fight is about, whether we want to remain a republic or whether we're going to allow ourselves to be taken over by tyranny. And
I would
tyranny
argue
what any of us want. I
that
don't think.
this is part of the war with the machines, because we all have 15 years ago, 0 smartphones. Today, 7 billion smartphones in the world. We've all got a little propaganda machine in our hands that floods us with bullshit every waking hour, and it's made a quarter of the population susceptible to wanting authoritarianism. And that's a weird, the James Cameron, when he made the movie Terminator, didn't see that as a threat, but that is one of the threats of technology, is people being driven to believe bullshit.
It's a
Toby, you got any
concrete
thoughts
threat.
about that? You're in the technology space. You're on mute right now, but you got any thoughts about that? You're in the technology space, and we definitely got folks that are saying things about the negativity of technology. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts, Jacoby, since I know you're in the space, but right now you're on mute.
I mean, technology it's a business. So whatever sells is what they're going to be promoting. That's what the algorithms are made for that. So when you search on Facebook or whatever else, yeah, it's going to repeat those same things that are tied to it. It's been going on for a long time. It's just that technology has picked up the pace about it. I mean, years ago, you could go to CVS and buy some diapers, and then you know what? In the mail, you're getting a ton of coupons. Well, it's picking up. I mean, and that's all technology is. The more, it's sad that money drives this, but that's what drives it is money. I mean, Google is free because they sell your data. Your data is what is the actual gold mine.
That's what has value.
So,
Right?
so I
That's
mean,
definitely what has value and everything. Speaking of that, and speaking of tit for tat, and I'd love to hear Lee's thoughts about this, but I know that there was all these accusations and there was 91 counts against Trump, but I am seeing more charges that are coming out against Democrats. So recently there has been a Department of Justice investigation into Cori Bush, who is under Justice Department investigation over alleged misuse of security funds. And there are a couple of other Democrats, including the one that was doing the prosecution. I'm not sure if she's a Democrat or not, but definitely some investigations into Fani Willis. And even the New York City Council is expected to override Mayor Adams for a second time Tuesday in that whole area of New York. So I was just wondering if we're having some tit for tat politics going on and all along those lines. And then I did have a international thing that is going on as well, because I know that when Nick's come along, he oftentimes talks about how bad Venezuela is, and apparently the U.S. is threatening to reimpose sanctions on the Venezuelan oil sector. So that might be some other things going on in the political landscape. But Lee Newton Rose, I didn't know if you had any thoughts, because when I was looking at some of the newer charges, including some against Hunter and everything, Hunter Biden, I did see that, hey, there was a whole bunch of charges, 91, I think, against Trump, and now there seems to be mounting charges against various Democrats. So I was wondering if we're having some tit for tat politics going on.
Let's Sasha go first, then I'll jump in.
Don't worry about Hunter Biden. Don't worry about anybody else. Worry only about one man. It's Donald Trump. He's just been hit with $83 million judgment, which he cannot even appeal, because unlike criminal trial, where he will be found guilty and he will appeal for the next 25 years, in this, if he wants to appeal this, he has to put in actual $83 million or find a bond agency that will put for him this money, although he would have to still pay probably 10% of his own money, and then bond will cover the rest. But there is no bond agency in the United States which you put for Trump $83 million. There is no such thing exists. But forget about this for a sec. Hold on. Forget about this 83 million. Okay, so he will find a couple of rich sponsors, say Elon Musk or somebody else. Okay, Donnie, here is $83 million. Don't worry, just put it in. Oh, but there is another judgment coming in New York, in Manhattan, New York. And next judgment is going to be estimation are $500 million up to $600 million, and all his real estate will be wrecked and no longer exist. Now, to put a bond for $500 million, It's rich even for Elon Musk because he has to worry about his Tesla stock, which is going down, and all this Twitter thing or whatever he wants. He calls it now X or something else. So this what you have to worry about. The jail is not so dangerous because okay, you go to jail and in 5 years you are out of jail. But when you are out of $500 million, and he doesn't have so much free cash. Even $83 million, he doesn't have that.
But
Yeah,
Sasha,
that-
maybe Sasha, hold on a second. I definitely want to hear from Leading Rose, but maybe he can borrow it from Danny Werfel because Danny Werfel just recently got a new job, and I know that it is an agency that Trump and others, particularly in the Republican camp, have targeted. But he got a new job, and they added $80 billion to his budget because he is now the commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service, and the IRS was shrinking even as the U.S. population was growing, and the new money was part of a rebuilding project. So they gave the IRS $80 billion, so maybe they can give part of that $80 billion, so they could just hand out $80 billion to the IRS to Mr. Trump and everything, because apparently he got this money because they are trying to help people with the filing of their returns, and the IRS apparently is going after wealthy people who owe back taxes and everything, and they had to hire some new customer service representatives. So they said they hired more than 5,000 new customer service representatives that can mean that their call centers are fully staffed and their walk-in centers around the country are fully staffed as well. So they're going to use that money partially for staffing.
To do with Donald Trump. Donald Trump.
You just said how much money he would have had, so I was making a comparison.
No. Donald Trump is damaged goods. It's done. It's garbage, and it will be thrown away. And you know by whom? By his own Republican Party. If they are smart enough, they have to just get rid of him and immediately get somebody else. If it's not Nikki Haley, get somebody else, at least some normal person, and try to rebuild the party. With Donald Trump, it's garbage.
The judge in the next civil trial, where the prosecution is asking for $370 million in penalties against Trump and dismantling his New York real estate empire, he says that decision will be out by the end of the day tomorrow.
Absolutely. So we'll have I have a cup of very, very good bottle of wine and also scotch. So I will celebrate it tomorrow. I think there will be $500 million plus.
Well,
So
let's
what
let
you
me
thoughts
have
around that Leading Rose? And by the way, we had a rare comment. Nick Palveda was saying that he's actually agreeing with Jacoby, because he said Jacoby is right. So Jacoby is right, because we know that sometimes they go head to head and don't agree. So he's actually giving Jacoby credit at all along those lines. But Lee, what is some of your take on this tit for tat politics? And then I was going to get to something that Jim brings up as we go down the Middle East, because there might be some interesting conversations in that area as well. But Leading Rose, what's your thought about this?
Thank you, Mark. I apologize. I came on late. I didn't hear what Jacoby said that Nick seconded. Jacoby, can you just repeat quickly? Summarize what you said, please.
He's on mute.
It was just, the only thing that we were talking about just a little bit earlier is how technology and the marketing, basically how your data is the gold mine. Your data is what's for sale right now. So the reason
100%
services are free is because they're selling your data on the back end to make that service for free.
100%. I agree with you also. So I triple that. No problem. Mark, your question. I'm sorry?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I know, quickly, I'm not an attorney, but the things that we hear all the time from Alan Dershowitz and any attorney or anyone from law school is that a prosecutor can indict a ham sandwich if they want. That's one. Two, indictments don't mean a whole lot if you're not getting convictions. And from a criminal standpoint, I don't see any criminal convictions yet on either Biden or Trump. The process, is the penalty a lot of these times just to bankrupt people, whether they're guilty or not. I'm very interested how these things are going to pan out.
Well, he was convicted of fraud, and they're just still.
I'm sorry, who was convicted of fraud?
Trump. And
criminally or civilly?
But I'm not.
Civilly.
And it is a crime, and what they're settling on now is how much he has to pay. And so there's a lot. You're absolutely right. Indictment means nothing if it doesn't. People can get indicted and be innocent. There's no question about that. But what we're talking about now is he's already been found guilty of sexual assault and then defamation. And they're talking about how much, and it was a startling amount, how much. And it was because he couldn't shut his mouth.
Yeah, I didn't understand that. Whether you like him or not, I don't know why he has no self-control, diarrhea of the mouth all the time. I just don't get that.
He's been quiet since the 83 million, though. He's been quiet for the past week or so.
Not
Prosecutors,
100%. There is already third charge since he was convicted, but the judgment hasn't been read. He did some more defamation against Carol, and now she is urged to start a third lawsuit for what he said since conviction.
Sasha?
And third lawsuit could be now for $1 billion. Don't be surprised.
Yeah, I wouldn't go quickly buy into these things. We saw what happened to Judge Kavanaugh, but you know what? After he got appointed, everything just died out. No charges, nothing. No indictments. Everyone just went away. So I tend to believe, you can't believe people so quickly.
He's small potato.
Yeah, but the jury did convict him of it. So in this case with Carol, there's no question.
That was a civil. Yeah, it wasn't criminal. Okay.
It wasn't criminal, but it's still, whether civil lawsuits still matter, and he was found guilty.
You know why civil conviction much better even or much worse for Trump than criminal convictions? Because in criminal conviction, you don't have to pay any money to court, and you can appeal, and you can go all the way to the Supreme Court, and you can drag it out for 8 years, then 25 years, whatever you can do.
Well, he brought up a really good point, Sasha.
With the civil, the beauty is, especially when he's being hit with $83 million plus another 5 before, so it's 88 total. And beauty is coming tomorrow for half $1 billion, if not more. So with this,
if it kept his mouth shut, it would have just been $5 million. And so why?
But he doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut. He's never known how to keep his mouth shut.
Want anybody voting for this guy.
But it's done, Jim. It's
very
done.
Bad judgment.
It's done. Now you can appeal that $83 million. It's too much, but you have to put $83 million in court. You have to take. He doesn't have that cash available to him. His real estate, it's all this mortgaged and already probably sold most of it, or arrested in New York or so on. He just doesn't have that money. And he
Hold on a second. Jim and Sasha, you just actually brought up a good point, and I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts around this, because I've heard some people that talk about the amount of people that have been, and I'll use the title of a movie, and some people can either like me using this term or not liking it, but bamboozled by the ultimate, what some people consider the ultimate con man in Trump, and all along those lines and everything, that there is a base that will always vote for him no matter what he does, and they will follow him blindly. I was actually just watching a TV show where they had some young kids that were being picked up by a predator that was almost like making them zombies, and all along those lines. So I'm wondering, will that base be so strong that they will vote for him? Let's just say it's only 30%, and the other population makes up 70%. But is that 70% going to be committed enough to want to go to the polls that he will definitely be defeated, or is there a true danger that his core base will vote heavily, and that the core base of the other folks, including the independents, won't come out as strongly, and therefore he could be President 2.0 version of Trump? Some people
his base will come out in Iowa in winter. So yeah, they'll come out.
His base is very strong when it doesn't count the money. Now, when it counts the money, they will not be able to come up with $500-600 million. It's just not there. His base is at the best 50,000 people, 50 million people or so. So they have to each cough up this $20, including that all of them, 100% of these people will cough up some money. They will not do it. Some of the people.
Sasha?
You have no means.
I'm just throwing a question out there. I don't have an answer. Can you declare bankruptcy?
Yes.
Yeah, he can. Yes.
And he almost certainly will. Yeah.
So he will have to find apartment for rent somewhere in Bronx
Well,
And,
it'll be a seventh time. He knows the drill.
Toby's been waiting a long time to say something.
Yeah, Jacoby.
I think Rick, you were actually before me, so I think you were first.
Yeah, you go ahead and then I'll go.
Oh, I was just going to touch on just a couple of things. Mark, you would ask the question if the other ethics things that are popping out were a tit for tat. The
Yes.
only thing that's a tit for tat are the insurrection or the impeachment things. Like this whole thing with Mayorkas impeachment. He hadn't done anything to warrant any form of impeachment. It's just a tit for tat thing. The same thing with the calls for they want Biden to be impeached. He hasn't done anything, and there's no proof of anything that he's done to be impeached. Those are the only tit for tat things. The ethics committee has actually been doing okay because they've just caught. There was Bob Menendez out of Jersey.
Yep.
Yeah, he's crooked. He's been doing some dirty stuff.
He's been a scumbag forever.
Yeah, so there's the young lady, the other young lady they just announced today. I forget her name, but yeah, how paying for something for her husband. Yeah, okay, that's crooked. They also got Matt Gaetz finally. They're putting up stuff for Matt Gaetz and dealing with underage kids, having sex or asking for sex from a teenager. So they're actually starting the same thing they did with the kid that got from New York who lied about everything under the sun. Oh, yeah. So I don't think it's a tit for tat on that. I think that the ethics committee is finally actually doing a little bit of something just so they don't have to go after the big fish that are out there. So really that piece is there. In terms of Trump and all of his things, dear Lord, the man, honestly, so with Hunter Biden is a private citizen. We keep forgetting that he is. We keep acting like he's a politician or that he is Joe Biden. That is what the Republican Party is pushing. That, Hunter Biden is actually the Biden family, and that is Joe Biden. That is all about the communication and muddying the water so you can actually play politics with what is real and not actually doing. Yes, Lee?
I actually agree with you. Hunter Biden is a private citizen. But the problem that some people have a concern is I can't take bribes as a politician. But you know what? I'm not going to take them. My wife will. My kids will. That's what people are concerned about.
But
except that's a ridiculous concern.
The problem with that argument, Lee, is that there's no actual proof that even happened. So what that is messaging, exactly what I'm talking about. They're taking a semblance of some truth that's out there. Oh, well, Hunter Biden did wrong. Okay, well, he's a private citizen and he did wrong. But then they're saying, well, that means Joe Biden did wrong too, which there is absolutely no proof that Joe Biden did anything wrong. That's a tit for tat messaging that the Republican Party is pushing because Donald Trump is crooked as, I mean, he can't draw a straight line himself. He's so crooked. So it's just, there's so many problems with their person that has been impeached twice, that has 4 indictments, 90 plus other cases against him, lost a case dealing with sexual abuse. Yes, it's a civil case, but then turned around and blabbed his mouth and lost a defamation case. Now has to pay $83 million. So to distract from all these problems, he's creating chaos on another end. And that's what the Republican Party is doing.
But the funny thing is that it's great to see Kimberly Calhoun with us. Nothing's sticking to this guy. I mean, he obviously.
That's not true. That's not true.
Let me finish.
He was convicted.
Let him finish.
Yeah.
Not true, though. Not true. He was convicted twice. That's stuck. That's stuck.
But the last Republican to do this well in the primaries was Ronald Reagan, 55%. The last person to come this close to win 2 was John McCain. And Mitt Romney came close. I think if he is convicted of another crime, the Georgia case or whatever, then I think he could be in trouble. But a lot of it is the timing. And before I leave it to Rick, I think that the fact is that I think the Biden administration, 2 things I will say. I think if Biden loses this thing, it'll probably be because of the border. I think the border's been a mess. It hasn't been handled well. I said it as a Democrat. I think they completely failed on it. And his chances working with the Republicans to get something done. Abortion could actually give him the election. And also he has to convey to the American people the economy is better, but people aren't going to believe that because they're paying higher prices. Let's go to Rick and I'll come back.
So if you go to an online bookie and you put $200 down on Biden getting reelected, you win, you get back $530. I think that is a great bet. Biden's not 100% shoe-in, but he certainly doesn't deserve those odds against.
I mean, he's got a chance. He could still win.
In the 4 years that Biden was a private citizen, between being VP and then being president, he and his wife were averaging more than $4 million of legitimate income a year via giving speeches and writing books. Why would people making that much money risk it all by taking dumbass bribes?
And Steve, just to push back on you on the immigration part, and this is where we have to be clear on our messaging and be able to educate everyone on what's going on at the border. There is an emergency. Sure, we can say that there's a problem at the border, but currently Texas is blocking the border, not allowing federal officials to go. Yeah. So to complain that Biden is not doing his job or Mayorkas is not doing his job, that's leaving out a fact that Greg Abbott is blocking.
And also, I think,
and then, hold on real quick, Steve, I'll let you get in after this one. And then on top of that, the negotiations that are going on right now, what are the people in the House doing? So the Democrats in the House are actually trying to negotiate. The Senate Republicans and the Senate Democrats are negotiating. Cabinet member Mayorkas is negotiating. Biden, the whole administration is negotiating. Who's not? That is the House Republicans who have blocked the bills, who have said that they literally have said that they will not vote on anything during an election year to give Biden a win. So when we say that Biden has failed on the border, we're lying. We're actually pushing a narrative, the same narrative that the GOP is actually pushing out there, the same thing that Trump is actually pushing out there. It's a complete farce to say that Biden has failed on that border when he can't even get money because the Republicans block it because they don't want to give him a win. He can't even get officials down there because Greg Abbott has blocked it because he doesn't want to give Biden a win. So with the GOP playing politics, we cannot sit here and lie and say that.
I'll end with this, and I'm going to let everyone else go because, I mean, you know, you guys all have. But here's the deal. This is a problem for the nation. The mayor of New York City has confirmed that the migrants coming in, the 50,000 that they're housing, is costing New York City $12 billion. Okay. That's money that we're not investing in police and fire. I'm not saying the thing is you're exactly right. The Republicans have no incentive now to do anything about it because they know the more and more borders that come in from the border, what is Donald Trump going to say? I told you so. I was going to build a wall. I didn't build a wall. They're coming in. This is a mess. So, I mean, all we can hope for is that Biden does extend the olive branch. I've heard a rumor. Tom Tillis is willing to work with the president.
He's actually put out there a Republican immigration bill.
Right.
The House GOP and Donald Trump have said no. So you can't, again, we cannot blame the man for doing the olive branch, like you're saying, for doing everything negotiation-wise, like you're saying. He's never going to get anything across because Trump has said don't do it. Trump in a rally 2 days ago said blame it on me.
Let's go to Sasha real quick and then James and down the row before we go back to Rick and also Kimberly's opinion. Sasha, what do you think?
I think that Mike Johnson, being a number 3 man or officer or whatever he is in the United States, admitted that every day he's consulting with Donald Trump, who is an enemy of the state. He wants all stock market collapse. He wants to do everything unspeakable thing on the border and everywhere else. So Donald Trump has enough legal troubles, and billions of dollars now will be against him. So he will collapse. One well-known politician said that at the end of the day, Trump will not go to jail. But as a result of all his proceedings, he will be destitute. He will be left without any penny. And that's exactly what's unraveling right now. And there will be no chance for him to become a president with everything what's going on against him. And wait until tomorrow. So Mike Johnson has to be arrested and put in jail, where he, for the next 5-6 years, he will get lawyers and he will try to explain that he is innocent, he hasn't done anything, or so on. In the meantime, he'll spend 5-6 years in jail. That's what has to happen. Biden has to take all his armies to border, arrest the Abbott and all other whoever will resist, put them and throw them in jail. That's how you govern. You have to use the power that you have according to Constitution. If you don't do it, you're garbage. Get out of here.
Rick
I want
Rosen,
to bring up something.
Yeah, Rick.
I want to bring up something new real quickly. When Elon Musk bought Twitter, he fired all the people who made sure that garbage didn't go out on Twitter. He's been forced to hire 100 new people to look for bad stuff on Twitter because conservatives don't like Taylor Swift, so they used AI to put up pornographic fake pictures of her on Twitter. And now Musk is being forced to clean up Twitter.
James Eden and Kimberly are always the insight of the wise woman on the panel, and then go to Mark Lee.
All right. Well, first off, Trump not only said he'd build a wall, but that Mexico would pay for it. And I don't blame anyone for voting for him in 2016 because everyone wanted to throw a monkey wrench into politics because politics wasn't working. And, but we know who he is now. There's no hiding what the guy is. And anyone who votes for him in 2020 or 2024, you've got to have your head examined. But there's 25 to 1/3 of the country that are just passionately in favor of him. And he's never going to lose that base no matter what he does. But what's going to swing this election are the independent voters and those people who haven't been passionate one way or the other. And it's issues like abortion. They're going to lose on that. They've lost everywhere, even in red states like Kansas. They put it into their state constitutions. But the Republicans want a federal ban on abortion. And that's a message that Biden needs to keep hitting that kind of thing. In the border negotiations, there's been a lack of good faith. And, there is real problems on the border, and people can rationally solve them if they sit down and barter together in good faith. And it used to happen in this country, and it stopped happening. This polarization somehow has got to go. People have to start talking together, sharing ideas, listening to one another, which is a lost art.
And which I recommend. Before we're going to bring it to Kimberly Calhoun, the founder of our network, a wise woman to bring us home. What I will say is that a book I would recommend everyone is How to Get to Know Someone by David Brooks, and it talks about how you really get to know each other, build relationships, and we're not doing that. And I think people are just attacking each other without really doing it. But Kimberly, your final insights.
Well, my final insights is I think I'm sick and tired of people whitewashing the fence for Trump. And every time I hear nothing sticking to him, and Steve, no offense to you, but I hear it all day long. That's not true. Things have stuck to him, whether you want to believe it or not. He was found guilty and guilty twice. And whether you want to believe that the courts were right or wrong, I'm going to tell you right now, I listened to a lot of reviews, and the judge had every right to deny the evidence they were using because he was already tried on those facts. So I just think we need to quit whitewashing and start presenting things as is. I don't think he has the good intentions of the United States, because every time he gets up to speak, all it's about is me. People have treated me wrong. I am a victim, and I'm going to come down on everyone who has opposed me when I become president. What we need is somebody who has nothing on their back, who is not fighting the law constantly, even, Biden's family. But the only thing that can pin on Biden is what his son's done. And quite frankly, you can't do that to a parent. It just because his son did something doesn't mean he is guilty of it. And nobody's been able to find him guilty. You've got a lot of mouth runners, but nobody, and I say mouth runners, and that's the Republican Party. Abortion, people need to keep their issues to themselves. And because right now I look at Texas as saying, I'm pro-life and we're pro-life and stop abortion, but they'll sit there and let a mother and 2 babies drown as they're crossing the river. I have a problem with that. What do they like that as entertainment? Have these babies because you don't want them, and then, we'll make sure that they all get abused and die because nobody wanted them. So I have issues with the Republican Party because they don't think before they push their religions and what they think is ethical on us. So I think that we need a good grounding person running that has nothing on their back, that doesn't push their religion on people, where we can separate church from state, basically. Right. And I think that the turning point is going to be what happens to our country by the Federal Reserve. That will be our swing vote.
Folks, we got to sign off. I think, Rick, last point, and I think I got to go, but we want to thank everyone for being on World Politics Today. Get out your popcorn. It's going to be a hell of a year.
So pundits like to say,
Steve, buckle up.
All right,
stay safe, everyone. And just
one last thing. Pundits like to say that most voters don't wake up and start paying attention until 6 months before the election. We still have 9 months to go.
Yeah, it's a lot of time.
Everybody wakes up, then they're going to.
I got a while.
As I say in football, there's a lot of time on the clock.
Think with common sense and ethics, and don't forget to go to the Pod TV store and our bookstore and buy your books from there. Thank you.
Look, I like